yes, I know I'm called to forgive, but what does that look like?
To the Wordsmith Forge Christian Fiction Podcast. My name is Mike Baines, and I'm your host. This podcast exists for readers, men, families, and anyone looking for Christian fiction that goes beyond romance. Stories with grit, stories with consequence, stories that quietly, and sometimes not so quietly, point us back to biblical truth. Every week we bring you an episode that can impact individuals and families. If you find value in that, tap the subscribe button now. That's the only way we know we aren't just speaking into a vacuum. Let us know what you liked or didn't like by leaving a comment. Now, let's get into it. Today's conversation is one of those rare ones that moves easily between faith, life experience, and story. My guest is Justin Major, a U.S. Army veteran, intelligence analyst, husband, father, church elder, and the author of an allegorical Christian fiction novel that invites the reader into the story itself. Justin writes from lived experience, deployment, doubt, grace, and calling. And he doesn't shy away from asking hard questions about faith, obedience, and what the Great Commission actually looks like on an ordinary Tuesday. We talk about his walk with Christ, the role of grace in restoration, why allegory can sometimes speak truth more clearly than direct instruction, and how stories can reach boys and men who might never pick up a traditional devotional. If you're looking for Christian fiction that challenges without preaching, encourages without coddling, and reminds us that faith is something we live before it's something we talk about, this conversation is for you. So settle in and help me welcome Justin Major to the Wordsmith Forge Christian Fiction Podcast. So please help me in welcoming Justin Major to the Wordsmith Forge Christian Fiction Podcast. Justin, great to have you with us.
It's an honor and pleasure to be here.
Well, would you mind sharing with the audience a little bit about yourself?
No, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, I'm Justin Major. It's always hard, like where to start. Kind of born and raised on the West Coast. At 18, I joined the Army. Took me to Texas, where my grandpa warned me he had a cousin that met a Texas girl and never came back. And I did the same thing. So,
Oh my.
yeah, married my wife. She's from Texas. While I was in the military, I deployed a couple times to Iraq. Met my wife after the second deployment and uh, went to college kind of right after that and got a job with the government, which took us to Virginia. And so
Yeah.
we moved to Virginia for about 4. I told her as a Texas girl, I told her, give me 5 years to get you back to Texas. And she agreed. And I did it in 4.
Good for
Um,
you.
yeah. So we moved back to the Northeast Texas area. I've been an intelligence analyst. That's what my kind of career is. I've done that since I was 18, essentially, and still doing that with the government, just doing it in Northeast Texas now. And yeah, I'm father of 2 beautiful girls. And like I said, husband. I'm an elder at the church that I serve at and worship at. And just started, I've been writing all my life and just started actually taking kind of my musings and forming them together to tell a cohesive story. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Oh,
what part of Texas do you live in?
yeah. So just, you look at, if you go to any Texas college, okay, here's El Paso and the Panhandle.
Right.
So yeah, we're east of Dallas. So in the northeastern part, about halfway between Dallas and the Louisiana border, Tyler, Texas, which
Yep.
is actually off the interstate about 7 miles. So you if you're going to Tyler, like the only way you really ever visit Tyler is if you plan to go to Tyler. But yeah, we've been here since 2014, and we would call it home
Yeah,
now after being a few
yeah,
different places. So.
sure. So is there somewhere around there that you like to go to enjoy God's creation and just kind of unwind?
I mean, we live on a beautiful place on 6.5 acres that kind of has a split pond,
Mm,
that's got bass and some panfish in it. I love kind of throwing a line out there. For me, it's growing up on the West Coast, specifically Oregon. The mountains have always been kind of I'd say sanctuary, where I connect the best. Typically, about once a year, I'm able to uh, get away, either joining my mom, uncle, and brother on like a hunting trip back
hmm.
west, or driving up into Oklahoma. And it's tougher. Texas isn't known for its mountains. Generally, they have all a little bit of everything because it is so big. But to get to the mountains, you got to be kind of head further west into the desert. But yeah, the mountains are kind of my favorite place. But anywhere in the woods, walking through some of the state parks nearby,
Yeah.
uh, I enjoy. I enjoy
Uh,
his creation for sure.
yeah, I did come up with a question about when you were in the military.
Hmm.
Did did you have any problems with rank? Uh, because you, I can tell you've been asked that a million times. Were you sergeant major? Uh,
So I never made sergeant. It was the joke I heard every day of my military career.
I'm
Of
sorry.
No, no, and the funny thing is it's like, because you'd have the people that are like, well, if you become an officer, you'll be major, major.
Yeah,
The people who have read books and like Fahrenheit for the major, major, like some of those characters in the books. But yeah, the sergeant major one came up often because they're like, oh, that'd be funny, and we'll make you make all the phone calls, and be like,
yeah.
sergeant major needs, this or that, get it done. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll get back on track here. Question that I ask all of my guests, and I find it very interesting, but some people might find it confusing. But what are three of your favorite songs?
Three of my favorite songs. I'm in the eclectic listener. I view it more like my soundtracks, like what,
Yeah.
right? So if I'm going for a drive with my wife in the summer, it's classic rock. It's anything in the realm of kind of the easy listening classic rock. And Beach Boys, for whatever reason, ever since I was a child, I've always loved the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
If I'm writing, I listen to a lot of instrumental, almost soundtrack, like big score, like Marvel movie type
Oh,
soundtrack. It kind of, yeah, it paints the picture for me of just this grandiose event, especially writing action sequences or anything like that. Um, and then to winding down there's a guy who, it's all kind of piano covers of songs, and it's just the piano, instrumental piano, and I enjoy that too. The
right.
only thing, rap, I don't listen to a lot of rap music. uh
I wonder
but
why.
otherwise I'm everything's fair game. Some
Yeah.
country, I prefer the older country.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. How about your movies? What are three of your favorite movies?
This is my, it, you know, I'm a big movie buff, so it falls kind of into the hardest question to answer. Um, the one that always comes to mind, and I don't know why I love it so much, but Jaws.
Oh,
Um, you know,
you're not the only one.
I
I've had
that's what I
other.
hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just hits all the points. It's got great acting throughout. here lately, Guy Ritchie as a director, any of the things he does, The Gentleman, is kind of one of his newer things, but he's been making movies as an English director for a while. Um, Also, there's like the movies that show up that I'm like, it's a yearly watch for me. I go back to like Ben-Hur,
Huh.
and like I enjoy watching that once a year. The Great Race. I grew up, as my mom would say, she shared all the great childhood ones for her with me. So I enjoy a lot of those kind of classics. Uh, Being a Texas movie giant with Rock Hudson and
Yeah.
Elizabeth Taylor, like that's one that I can watch about once a year. Some of the epics. So yeah.
Well, if you don't mind, could you tell us about your walk with Christ?
No, absolutely. I grew up uh, in the church. I wasn't born there, but got there as quick as I could. Raised family always went to church. Uh, it was a I was raised in a grace-based church, so they didn't baptize or anything like that. Which that comes in when we talk about the walk kind of down the line. Uh, when I would say kind of my first big moment where it became my relationship with God versus my family's or my parents' relationship. It was right around sixth or seventh grade. I had kind of fought them on going to church. Any parent, at times you might have the kid that doesn't like acts like they're sleeping late on Sunday and doesn't want to, I was that kid where I just
Yeah.
lay in bed and I just wait to hear the car door and hear them drive so that I knew they left me and didn't take me to church. But right at sixth or seventh grade, I just started, it became kind of like I wanted to know about this for myself, not just be told. Um, and that kind of grew throughout high school. I was super involved in youth group. Um, as far as, you know, when I would say I said the words, like I asked Jesus into my heart and all
Yeah.
that, probably at 5 or 6 at a camp. Um, I'd say the relationship became mine in sixth or seventh grade, and then right when I graduated high school and went into the military. You being a veteran know, the military is not full of people that just love Jesus and want to talk about him all the time. Um, and in hindsight, I realized that I had a great foundation in the Lord. The building, the structure that I had built through high school was was held up by the scaffolding that was my family, that was the church, that was the youth group, and that scaffolding fell away. And then you have kind of call them attacks, call them whatever you will. And the structure that I had built on that foundation slowly just kind of wore down. I deployed to Iraq that first time, and I never stopped believing in God. There was some tough instances. My platoon sergeant was injured and lost his leg during that first tour. Had had some other individuals and friends that were injured. So it challenged me a lot in the classic why it is bad things happen to good people. And so I got back from Iraq and I decided, I didn't stop believing, but I was going to do what I wanted to do. I wasn't going to worry about what God thought. I was just going to do what I wanted, live how I wanted to live. Um, and that road only ends in one place.
Yeah.
And for me, it was kind of broken down just in a heap of, I can't do this anymore. Like, help me, Lord.
Yeah.
And, I would really say that was kind of my big turning point of, rededicating my life to him. Uh, that'd be about at 21, 22, meeting my wife. as a young couple, it's like, well, I guess, young married couple, it's like, well, I guess we go to church, like that's what we do. And really figuring it out a little bit. Our time in Virginia was amazing in that it got us away from family and we were able to really be a family unit where, we found a great church in Virginia and just allow the Lord to build our family in the way that He wanted, as opposed to, you have in-laws and parents that are like, you should do this, you should do that. It was very much, God building us into how He wanted us. Um, and, ever since, it's always ups and downs. It's, looking, seeking for guidance, turning to Him when we mess up. But yeah, it's been an amazing time. Grace is kind of my word for my life, especially coming back to my home church after all the mess ups. And it was during Thanksgiving service, and at our church, they had done basically Thanksgiving service. They would do pass the mic around and people could say what they were thankful for. And that was kind of one of those breakdown moments, sharing
Yeah,
how thankful I was for the church, the love, the grace I had received from everyone. Because all the feelings that I had was I disappointed everybody. Nobody right? It's all the things that the enemy wants you to segregate yourself, get away from anybody that will lift you up and love on you and support you. Um, and yeah, when I turned back, I was welcomed with open arms, which is, yeah, grace is that's my baseline. That's what I'd like to lead with if I can. So.
great. So you are an author and you've done some writing. What genre do you write in?
So generally, I'd always just written kind of, my time in Iraq. I loose autobiographical stuff, I would say. And then short stories is kind of what I leaned into. And now it's allegorical fiction, is
Hmm.
the genre. I try to, because my book's a little different in that it tells there's an overarching story, a through line through the book. At the end of every chapter, in the same way, I would say that, Jesus in the parables kind of took some time to let the disciples know, like, this is what this is about. I did the same thing in my book. So at the end of each chapter, there's a little nonfiction, but for the most part, it's just allegorical fiction, um, telling the story in this world where, there's two worlds. There's life below the sea, below the water, and then there's the life. You see the light, and at some point you reach for the outstretched hand, and it pulls you above the water, and you start another life. Um, and it's based in the idea of we're all made new once you make that decision, and we're given, it's very maritime themed. So you're given a commission, you're put to work. It's very much kind of the taking the Great Commission and putting it into this story of what it looks like going back out onto the water to look for others and the
Yeah.
perils of it, the journey of it, all that.
Which biblical truth or passage anchors the book that we're discussing today? It sounds like you deal with more than just one biblical truth.
Yeah, each chapter ties back into um, you know, a level of biblical truth. The through line in it is uh, overall, I would say, the Great Commission and how we're called. We're all called to something.
Yeah.
Um, and we can choose to try and ignore that. The book has the harbor master, which is God, and he's writing letters of commission to people all the time and sending them out. And there's conversations where he's like, some people take it and run with it, some people ignore it, some people come and ask me questions. He's like, which I love, and he's like, there's all different ways that people handle that. But yeah, each chapter leans into a biblical truth of some kind, um, with kind of the Great Commission being the overarching through line through, um, like calling in general, that we're all called to something.
Our listeners are really looking for books that reach boys, men, and into our families too. Um, my podcast, I guess, is directed mainly at non-romance books, books that men can connect with, books that single moms can share with their young sons who have no male connection. They have no males they can interact with. So would you say your books connect with that audience?
No, absolutely. I've gotten a lot of great feedback, um, especially from the men. Um, the idea that, I think often we as men will, you know, we can lean heavily into as a father, husband, right? Husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church,
Yeah.
uh, and the sacrificial nature of that, and we forget that that is a calling, but there's other things in there that we're called to, whether that is, leading a men's Bible study, starting a podcast to reach specific people, right? Like
Yeah.
leaning into those other ways that we're called. On the younger audience, because one of my good friends, he has been reading it with his son, and he said it's led to some amazing conversations between the two of
Yeah.
them where they can
Yeah.
dig into the chapter. And a lot of the early readers have told me, because of the way it's formatted, they love to take it as a devotional, and
Hmm.
and really a chapter a day or a chapter a week, and really lean into the concepts of it, and how it applies to their life, or how, the situations in their life that they're like, oh, that's when this happened. And I know exactly that conversation I had, and that is happening at the same time in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But good for the gentleman and any other man who's taken your book and read with his son.
Mhm.
What a way to build a bond that the boy may not recognize now, but
Absolutely.
yeah, as he starts to have children, uh, he will uh, he will draw heavily on that. Hmm.
Absolutely. And because it's maritime themed, I mean, part of it is, you have the cowboys and Indians, the pirate, like all the boyhood kind of adventure aspects that,
Yeah.
I would say it's partly my ode to just that desire to imagine, living on the ocean with no greater calling than these other people who are out there that you're trying to save,
Yeah.
and help breach the surface. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I noticed that you had quite a few uh, reviews, good reviews
Hmm.
on Amazon. I selected one just to share with our audience, if you don't mind,
No, go for it.
and I have it memorized. Uh, look, I have it on my teleprompter. I was expecting adventures on the high sea with Christian themes. I got that, but this book offers much more. There's some imagery and metaphor here that's both cinematic and very unexpected. That's great for a recent convert like myself, still trying to make sense of it all. Even better, I imagine, for long-timers who may be all too familiar with Islands of Peril for the faithful. This book doesn't reassert known truths in the known way, so those truths can be nodded at and quickly forgotten. Putting them in this new, sometimes jarring allegories forces the reader to take notice and confront these truths. And if that's not enough, the author then speaks directly to us and lays it out, then asks us to apply these truths to ourselves. High seas adventure indeed. I I think that reviewer could be an author herself,
Right.
but but she gives us a little bit of imagery as she goes along. So I would think that you do hope that your book will sharpen the faith of the reader if they're already in the faith. I know my own faith, I think since I started this podcast over a year ago, has been sharpened.
Mhm.
And if books do that, or if talking to authors do that, so much the better.
And so much of I know my early struggle, um, coming, you know, being more rededicating to the Lord. It was the idea of like what did Tuesday look like for Paul? Like a random Tuesday.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and we have the letters, and we know those early Bibles, you have the maps, so you know where he traveled to and around when he traveled to. But it was a big question of like what did Tuesday look like? And I wrestled with that because, as I'm sitting there on a random Tuesday myself, like what what should that look like for me? And there was several elements or questions like that would come up. And after I kind of created this world, I would take those questions into the world and like, well, how does the Bible talk about this, and what would that look like in the world? There's a chapter on kind of the uh, the pearl of great price from a little bit of a different angle,
Yeah.
where it's about comparison, and you have these pearl hunters who they go back into the water, they get bags of oysters, drag them up, and they're looking for a better pearl every time. And they're comparing it to this huge pearl that's in the middle. And you as the reader, um visiting these people, you're realizing like there's no point to this. Like you're sitting there comparing yourself, the issue of comparison, trying to say you're better than the other, when biblically we know what the answer is to that. There's only one that's better than all of us, and he paid the price for any of the issues that are there. Um, so yeah, I mean that's pretty much chapter after chapter of the book is taking, instances. The birth of them was instances I was experiencing as I was walking through life with the Lord, and then how they would play out in the world I created. And you have those individuals that uh the kind of through line in the story. You have a few individuals they surfaced from the water, which is, I relate very much to that. I lived outside of the water and I was curious, and I decided to jump back in, ignoring what God said, ignoring what family or anybody said. I jumped back in the water. Uh, and there's a character that kind of lives life for a while, coming in and out, just, no, I'm still looking for something, and dives back in, and it's like everything you need is here. Like,
Yeah.
start looking here. So, yeah.
But you write this book, and you thought about it a long time before you actually wrote it, I'm sure. It was
Mhm.
always kind of noodling around there, trying to get out. And so you write it. It's a it's a good feeling when you get it back. All there's the cover, the title. It's all great. So is that the end of it? Or do you feel like your writing is kind of a ministry, a mission, or is it just a message and you've passed it on and you're done?
It's at this point, especially in the world I've created, I already know there's more stories to be told.
Ah,
Um, I see it as a ministry, especially from the aspect of, um, there's more experiences as a Christian that will shake you, and trying to tackle those in the world with, I wrote this whole book. I didn't realize it was odd at the time, but it's second person, um, with the reader as the main character. And, I just wrote it that way because that's what I wanted to do. And it made the most sense as I'm talking to them and I want them to walk through this world. And it wasn't till towards the end that I'm like looking up like, okay, second person, and article after article of second person being like the hardest way to write, and so as I explore the other stories in the world, I'm wrestling with the idea of continuing second person or going, I don't even want to say the normal route because this felt normal to me because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's a story for a young character. Uh, I think Parables of the Sea, which is the title of the book, it'll be the title, and then it'll have a subtitle for each one. But there's a young character. The Young Captain's Commission is kind of what I'm working on now, and
Mm.
it'll lean heavily into uh, Paul's letter to Timothy about not letting them look down on you because you're young, and he lists out, several things, right? Like you're going to lead in purity, you're going to lead in speech, this is how you're going to conduct yourself. And so that's what I'm working on next is leaning into that story. And I'm going to try and be more targeted, young adult, or not even young adult, say, it's going to be kind of a Hardy Boy adventure for this younger character as he tackles with, what does it mean to be a captain? What it,
Yeah.
because he'll have a world telling him that you're too young to lead, you're too young, right? Which, if you're doing the right things, yes, knowledge, wisdom, we can all grow those things, but young, we see throughout the Bible, young men doing great things for the kingdom. And, putting that at the forefront, I think, is important in this next book. So,
Well, audience, there's something to look forward to after you
absolutely.
read the Parables of the Sea. It is, let's see, subtitled A Voyage of Grace, Calling, and Redemption. There's going to be another one on the way. So now that shouldn't be, I don't want to sentence you to something that is like putting you in prison, but if it works out great, it does.
Mhm.
We'll keep an eye out for that.
No, I mean, I'm sure too, the curse of author is the second you start writing or working diligently on something, the ideas for other things are floating constantly and attack you.
Yeah,
So I've had a couple that have come along, but knowing that I was already going to write that one, I down, I set them to the side, and I'll come back to them. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for it. So.
yeah. I had a book pretty well lodged in my head, and I thought, well, let's see. While I'm thinking about how to write that, maybe I'll start a podcast. not, not necessarily the best thing for an author to do. Uh, so, was there a Christian author that helped you early on?
The earliest stuff as far as like in high school, Ted Decker's Circle series,
Hmm.
I leaned heavily into that, and then I would read a lot of his stuff, a lot of the Frank Peretti, um, like getting into that as I've, here lately, I've been going back because there's, you deploy in the military and you end up having these gaps where you're like, why did I don't know this book, like where did this book
Yeah,
come from? And so it's been kind of going back and touching base with some of like the Shack and some of these other kind of allegory, or they lean into the world of allegory that I just want to familiarize myself with and explore a little bit. I know for that, that one, there's some content behind it. But narratively, I've enjoyed uh, kind of getting back into those. There's a lot of the here lately. I decided like the Michael Crichton's, the early Michael Crichton stuff. Like I had never read his things. I know he's not a Christian author, but just trying to familiarize myself more with some of the you know earlier books in different genres that um, I know I enjoy, and how I can take some of those themes and elements and bring them into my writing to this world.
No. Well, did you ever have a time when it seemed like the words weren't coming really smoothly, but there was that kind of kept you grounded?
I tried to find verses ahead of the chapters would that would keep me in the
Yeah,
place where I knew um, where I what I was trying to convey in the story. There was, off and on, there was several times, whether it was life commitments that would come up. Um, I think the I go back to the Great Commission, and I have this conviction myself where I think it's easy for us to delegate the Great Commission, or we get to the, like we'll go to church and then we send missionaries and we, right, like we do all these things and
yeah.
it's like, what are like, yeah, that's all good. That's all great. But then we lose kind of this personal commission to do something for the kingdom. Um, and so I lean heavily into this is what I have felt called to write this story. Um, I as an author, there's a book that's, if it saves only one, right? Like if it saves
Yeah,
only one, like it's worth it.
yeah.
And so like that line that's a through line in the book is very much leaning in, like, I would love to sell thousands of copies maybe someday, but if it reaches and helps one like reconnect with the Lord, grow their faith, then then it's gravy. Like I'm happy. So
I believe most understand that for some people we're the only Bible they will have read.
mm,
But if in some way if I could maybe a person towards God, then hallelujah.
absolutely.
What a blessing. Uh, you kind of indicated that you have a verse ahead of writing the chapter. So you get your verse and you started writing the chapter, and all of a sudden your protagonist off on its own, and you have to keep writing to see where it's going to wind up.
Well, yeah, the knowing having the verse kind of ingrained. The uh the other chapter that comes to mind, you know, the the idea, the verse, it's gonna slip my mind at this point, but it's that our right is a knife and it can cut.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
uh you have this, village protagonist is visiting, and they're a village who speaks truth according to them, but with no love. And for the longest time, they've since changed. You have the hardest part with that is you have a whole village. Where do we go? And I found myself like I could spin, I don't 10,000 words, 20,000 words in that village, because there's so many characters, there's so much hurt from, right, the past. You think, imagine a world where everyone spoke truthfully, but with no love, with no grace, like everyone would feel very bad. Like it would be a horrible place to live. And that this village has been that way. years and years and years, and they're just coming out of it.
Mm,
And, I think that's the hardest part is you want to do as much as you can to really convey and with the reader, have them connect with different characters. And so you people and try and hit every note, to where like how did this affect, this older mother? How did this affect this man? How did it affect when they grow up? And you get to, I think that's the hardest part is you're writing it and you have to remember, like try to do less with, or more with less, I think.
yeah.
Um, because you want the reader to the story and not stall out anywhere. Um, I think that's probably one of the challenging parts, knowing what I want to convey. I mean, like there's a wealth to really cover, um, and not leave anybody out. There's all those you wanna incorporate, um, that makes it difficult to kind of know this is the story I'm gonna tell, and um, you know, kind of give somebody because the reader is kind of the main character. He has shipmates that he's trying, and so they each get to shine a little bit, and through them, I think is how I solved some of those issues of wanting to touch base with so many that I let them represent kind of the different types of people that can read the book and how with those types of situations.
It mentioned uh, people that might tell the truth with love, and how that you think about how that is received by the person that needs to hear the truth. Can they hear it if there's no love attached? And really, that's the blessing of Christian fiction, because you can you can spin a yarn, biblical principle that tells a person the truth that they need. It's just like the story David heard. There was a rich man that needed to feed some guests, and he had sheep. He took one. David wouldn't have responded well, I don't think. He said, "Oh, what you did,
Right.
you let him discover it himself through a."
Absolutely. Yeah, in some of the early readers, friends, pastor, like I would get, texts letting me know where they were at and like, oh, ouch, like, and that's where, I mean, there's a beautiful thing. Oh, it's doing exactly, not
Yeah,
to, you know, it's you don't just poke people with the stick, you you show them. And then the same with all the parables Jesus taught, right? Like
right.
it, it wasn't just all the flaws. It was, this is how this is wrong. This is how you fix it. Like this is what you should be doing. And everything very much so. I just, in those devotional sections, it's just pointing people back. You God's word says about this,
Yeah,
um, and sure having fun in the story, but then also at the end of it, thing where for the longest time, ever since high school, you know, you'd get commentaries on these classic novels. This actually represented 17th century colonialism, right? Like, and I'm like, says who? Like, and the guy wrote it for, and I think part of part of me, that's part of why I included the devotional section at the end of each chapter because I want clear to the
yeah.
reader, like what we're talking about here and why it's so important.
Is there a character you relate to? Is that is you?
Not 100% me, but the his name's Charlie, and he's the one who keeps diving in the water. He's looking and he's
Yeah.
just not looking in the right place. And
Yeah.
I think we all at different periods in our life, um, that's that's kind of the one. But there's elements of me and kind of the main character, you, the reader, your pal that kind of sticks by you from almost. He goes through some challenges with his own self-worth. Like I haven't done anything myself. The allegory is that the ships, right, the harbor is the church, and the ships are these ministries that the harbor sends. And he's been a part of many ships. He's helped out. He's done amazing, but he's never captained his own ship. He's right, like felt like he's done anything himself. He's just been a part of other things. And I
Yeah.
think heavily with that in, up until writing this book, say, that was kind of yeah, I'm involved in mine. And it takes, the harbor master really, like, like it has nothing worth, has nothing to do with whether you're a captain or not. Like it's all wrapped in what you've done for the kingdom. And, I think those moments did it just as much as the characters did in reframing some of those things, in my Christian walk, because it's easy to, especially if you're, you know, not in front of people, it's kind of a back, no recognition, you're setting up chairs
Right.
before or after, right? Like never kind of feel like, well, I just set up chairs. It's like, what do you mean? Like that's where people, like, you do it the best you put straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's value in all the elements together. Um, the way these story as ships are sent out, the the way they need individuals in the harbor who are providing them rest. Um, yeah, the allegory runs deep as far as and how it all relates.
So it sounds like it was cathartic for you. It provided you were trying to write these stories.
Absolutely, yeah. I had a number of chapters to make it a book. There was a lot of chapters, just call them short stories, that I wrote
Yeah.
for myself. Uh, even I wouldn't say much hurts, but there's a chapter, seems like it's always in the news here or there, where someone who's looked up to in the capital nation messes up or is caught in some sort of uh, that you know how do you process that? But there's still a hurt. There's still scars for some people and how they were treated by, like the forgiveness one. Obviously, there's books written just on forgiveness,
Yeah.
and there will be many, many. But that was one that I wrote a chapter that I for to just trying to tackle that idea. Like how do I handle that? How do I approach it? Yes, I know I'm called, but what does that look like? And what moving forward, do I just, is it just I let them write to my life, or is there some, barrier that's pretty, yeah. And so, yeah, tackling really cathartic, really, really work all these different things.
Is there any one thing you would tell the young Justin if you could go back and speak to yourself as a young boy, or a message that you would give him?
That's a great question. You know,
Yes.
yeah, that question is, you know, the road that the Lord took change anything because, you know, like I know I'm the because of some of those things. I think just the fast to what the word, right? Like
Yeah.
leaning into more heavily during the storm where questions arose. Um and you know, and the answer's there. The answers are there. You know, put the shovel in the dirt and start digging. Find the answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Episode that's up right now with our podcast is an army chaplain.
Yeah, this week it was
Yeah,
great.
and his advice was just keep rowing. And I guess it's correct because when you write a Christian fiction book, you a lot of dragons. You put a lot of demons to, and you wouldn't want to have to go back. So it's what you've already come through, what you rode. Uh, if you just keep rowing, and you'll be where God wants you to be, where you need to be.
Absolutely. There's a in the book, you know, it's a harbor. It used to be a harbor, and like why did the harbor master leave? You visited the harbor, they said you left, and he's like, I didn't leave. They, and it's that idea that I need to be knocking on his door every day and
Yeah,
and here, and he's like, no, he's there. He's just waiting for you on the door. Um, yeah, to him when things get tough. And when I heard him say that I was just by book,
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about the maritime, all the,
yeah. He could relate to that.
yeah.
And I can. A lot of other people will be able to also.
Mhm.
Do you have a good way for people to find your book other than just Amazon.com?
So it's it's on Amazon, anywhere
Okay.
online that you're searching for books.
Yeah.
See, so I went ahead and to publish an imprint.
Yeah.
So Sea and Soul Press is kind of you can find me on. It's the kind of crew dispatch, call it, and so
Yeah.
join the crew, and on where the book's going. And yeah, the email right there at Sea and Soul Press. Uh, Socials, Instagram, Facebook. You can find Sea and Soul Press. Keeping up with uh, a decent. That's probably some of when you talk about the challenges of
Oh, yeah.
from the get go, kind of learn. It's all the things to do to be a good steward of the gift, and
Certainly.
so part of that is keeping up the socials. I'll share. My wife would post something, and I might I'm trying to be really a lot better about, different insights from the book and kind of creating a fun place for the romance, more elements of the world and I have going on. So
Great. Went by very fast for me. Here, Justin, do you mind if I pray? Thank you. Just stand in awe at and how you have, and we thank you for the skill and the ability to take on those assignments, and as we need to. We ask that you bless and keep him in what he's doing and his community there. Just bless his efforts. Just appreciate the fact that you were the Christian fiction author as you were writing parables for us to learn out some. Just thank you for sharing those with us. Justin Strong, bless us to create new Christian fiction stories. We ask these things in your name, Lord. Amen. So I hope you have a productive and look forward to series grows.
absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
You're more than welcome.
You too.
Goodbye. As we wrap up today, how much of this interview wasn't just about writing a book, doing a calling? Justin lived in a straight line. It's lived through question, obedience, rest, sometimes through calm waters, and your head down and continuing to row. About Justin's work is that it doesn't answers. Instead, it is discovered, wrestled with, and ultimately that's the power of Christ. It helps us hear truths we might resist if they were. If you're a father reading along beyond routine, or someone trying after drifting, honest conversation. Spending your time with us, the listener, and it grows stronger when you subscribe and share these conversations. This has been the Wordsmith Forge Christian Fiction, for not just the stories that shape them. Until next time, and keep rowing. Out.